Hi guys, I'm Zaza, and if you've been following me for a while, thank you, by the way, you might be used to seeing me on the other side of my kitchen counter, where I'm usually showing you how to create cakes, where I infuse nice patisserie techniques. But today, we are actually going to be talking about business. Cake business to be specific, and not just any cake business. I'll be talking specifically about the type of business that I know, obviously, because it's the path that I've been taking on myself, and this is what I help my Cake Society members with. I'm talking about running a high-end cake business from home. But before we get started, I'll start with a little bit of context about who I am, because I think it kind of matters, doesn't it? So I was actually never a hobbyist baker. I actually trained as a patisserie chef back in 2010 in France, and I decided to move to the UK because I was completely obsessed with wedding cakes, and back then in France it was not really a thing, not to say they were almost non-existent, unlike now. So I moved somewhere where I knew they actually were a thing, and the UK was the perfect place for that. So I first had the chance to work with a really famous, amazing cake designer in Bristol, and I've learned so much from her, and I brought her my patisserie background as well, so it was such an amazing experience. And it's really funny because when I went out on my own to start my own cake business, I honestly thought that I had it all figured out, you know. I knew how to make cakes, I knew how to make beautiful and delicious cakes, and what actually hit me pretty quickly was the business side of things, because as it turns out, that part I had not figured out at all. It was, I wouldn't say pretty bad, but it was definitely challenging, to say the least. I knew from the start that I wanted to do premium cakes, and I wanted to look the part. I had done communication studies before that, and my parents were always in sales, so I knew that looking the part when it comes to selling anything high-end is so important. So that's something that I grasped on pretty early, and that I worked really hard to make happen. So I invested early. I took some photography class, I bought myself an entry-level DSLR, but that did the job really well, and I did the wedding shows, I got the website up, the front end was there, but behind the scenes it was definitely a little chaotic. It's not chaotic exactly, but it wasn't exactly super organized, and at the very least it was not sustainable. So that gap between how I presented myself and how I actually operated was really starting to get in the way of my business growth. So for me, the first turning point came when I discovered the amazing world of CRMs, which are basically client management softwares, and I started using Dubsado. I discovered that completely randomly outside of the cake world, but it really changed everything for me, because all of a sudden I was operating at a high-end and professional level that was actually sustainable, because all the systems were in place doing the heavy lifting for me. I had to do all of the legwork to put that into place, and that took a while, but once that was in place, it just changed absolutely everything. Because yes, suddenly my business had a structure, the inquiries were handled professionally on the back end, and I just stopped dropping the ball completely, and that was quite a relief. But obviously, since then, a lot of things happened, you know, life. COVID hit first, and I had to completely pivot my business, and I started doing an online cake shop, and then I had a baby, and then a few years later, I moved to France. But the COVID and the baby part, because I had the systems in place, it just meant that throughout all of that chaos, everything was still handled for me on the back end. And that was definitely not a small thing. And this is what I want to share with you in this series. So now I'm actually 100% focused on teaching other cake designers, such as yourself, how to build the same foundations, but obviously faster than I did, and without having to take years to figuring out the hard way, because who wants that, right? I'm actually going to cover in this cake business series, I have structured it around 3 phases, and they follow the same method that I would recommend anyone who's starting or anyone who wants to pivot their existing cake business to a more high-end profile. Phase 1 is getting started, obviously, and this is your foundations. This is where you define who your ideal client is, your signature style, your portfolio, your visual identity, your photography. And before anything else, you need to be clear on who you are. And that means who you are as a cake designer, obviously, what it is that you do, and who you're making it for. And even before that, you need to have all of your business basics in order. So depending on where you are, this means having food hygiene certifications, having a different setup. Maybe you're not baking from home because in certain places of the world you can't have a home kitchen. So all of that needs to be in order before you do anything else. So make sure that you do your local research and that you're clear on the specificities of running a cake business in the country that you are. That's your homework for today. Phase 2 is getting organized, and that is where a lot of cake designers lose momentum actually, because the inquiries start coming in and they're just not ready because they don't have the system in place to handle them properly. And like I said earlier, in the long run, it's just not sustainable. So we're going to be talking how to set up your website, how to manage inquiries. We're going to talk about the tasting experience, basically anything that you need to have organized and have set for you to run a successful cake business. And phase 3 is getting noticed, because how you build relationship with venues and suppliers, whether wedding shows, whether you do directories and if they are good ideas, and how to use Instagram to attract the right clients. Because at the end of the day, you might have the best cakes in the world, the best website, but if no one hears about you, you're just not gonna sell cakes, are you? So getting noticed is so undervalued, but for me, networking was such a game changer in my own business. Contacting magazines, contacting wedding magazines, local newspapers, all of that we're going to be talking about in this series as well. And alongside this series, I've put together the high-end cake business blueprint. And if you're keen to get started and you don't really want to wait one video a month on the subject, then you should definitely grab it today, because everything that we're going to be talking about in this series, but more in depth. And also I'm giving you a workbook so that you can start actually implementing the things that you discover. It is such a great tool, and I obviously highly recommend that you grab it today, and it will definitely help you get started straight away. And the link for the workbook and mini course is in the description below. And as always, make sure to subscribe, because you definitely don't want to miss out on the other videos that are coming on the subject. Because if you are dreaming about running a high-end cake business from home, whether it's wedding or celebration cakes, as a matter of fact, because I was doing both, and I was doing both at a high-end level, then you're definitely in the right channel, and I really, really, really want to support you in your journey. So make sure to subscribe so that you don't miss the next video. And I'll see you in the next one.